Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Alicia Pan. I am an Outreach and Events Officer at Schwarzman Scholars, and I am so happy that you're joining us today. This installation of our featured Spotlight series will be an informal conversation between Cordel Faulk, our Director of Global Admissions, and Lara Tiedens, our Executive Director. These featured spotlights are really an awesome opportunity to showcase facets of the Schwarzman Scholars experience that goes beyond the static images and text that you might find on our website. If this is your first time engaging with us, welcome. Schwarzman Scholars is a fully funded master's program in global affairs that's based at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China. The mission of Schwarzman Scholars is to deepen mutual understanding between China and the rest of the world. And we do this by equipping the next generation of future young leaders with the knowledge, skill sets, and connections to ensure that the future will be peaceful and prosperous for all. Enough about that and enough about me. As we transition over to this conversation part of the featured webinar series, I want to remind those in attendance today that you may use the Q&A feature to inquire or ask any questions, and we will try our best to address them later on in the program. So with that, I'm going to ask that my wonderful colleagues introduce themselves to you. And so Lara, may you please introduce yourself to those in attendance today?
Sure. Thank you so much, Alicia, and especially for that really enthusiastic welcome. Your energy is always infectious. So I'm Lara Tiedens, and I'm the new Executive Director for Schwarzman Scholars. I started at Schwarzman Scholars about 2 months ago, so I'm relatively new and continue to be learning about the program, just as those who are joining us today are in the process of learning about the program. I come here from Scripps College, where I have been the president of the college for the last 5 years. And prior to being at Scripps, I was at the Stanford Graduate School of Business for 18 years. Most of those, or all of those, as a faculty member. I started there as an assistant professor and worked my way up to being a full professor, and then also was an administrator there as a senior associate dean at the business school there at Stanford. So I've been, as you were reminding me the other day, Alicia, I've been in academia for a long time, and really excited to be on this new adventure.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Lara. And Cordel, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Alicia, thank you so much. And thank you for putting this together. I'm really happy that we're here, able to have this conversation. So my name is Cordel Faulk, and as Alicia noted, I'm the Director of Global Admissions for the Schwarzman Scholars program. I've spent my career as a lawyer and a writer and an editor, but immediately before joining the Schwarzman Scholars program, I spent a little more than a decade as Dean of Admission at the University of Virginia School of Law.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. One thing that we on the admissions team always ask of our applicants is, what is your why? And so I'd like to also ask that question to our leadership team here. And so what aspects of Schwarzman Scholars compelled you to consider taking on this leadership role within the organization? Lara, do you mind starting first?
I don't mind at all, because of course this is a question that I was really contemplating very recently. So as I was just describing, I've been in the world of higher education for my entire career, and it's, I think, a wonderful and exciting context to spend your life and to spend your efforts, in the sense that you get to be part of the developmental trajectory of young people, and young people who will go on and do great things. And that's true for Schwarzman Scholars. It's true for all of the institutions I've been lucky enough to be part of. But what was really exciting to me about the Schwarzman Scholars program is that it really represents true innovation in higher education. And that's not something that's that easy to come by. Though we all try to be innovative in whatever we do, so much of higher education is just it's a very kind of set sector where it's hard to break out of what institutions have sort of always done as part of their traditions or what the market demands. But this is a program that was built not as a way to just be another program that, but really to do its own thing, to follow its own mission. And its mission is about today and tomorrow. It's about the issues. It's about creating leaders that will help our world get to where it needs to be in the future. And it's not roped in by all of these kind of, we're this kind of program, we belong to this comparison set, we have to do this. It's really a program that that's just invented itself and invented itself in order to achieve these really important goals. And so what I saw in it was this kind of rapid prototyping approach. So there's always tons of experimentation about what to do. Every year we change the program hugely. We're constantly sort of saying, how do we do what we do even better? And that was so exciting to me, coming out of a traditional higher ed setting, to have that sort of sense of achieving what it is that we're trying to achieve, and to do so with a really open mind, with flexibility, and with this sort of spirit of experimentation and innovation. And that was probably the thing that really excited me the most about this opportunity. And during my short time here, I've seen that play out every day in my experience with the staff and faculty here at Schwarzman Scholars. The other thing I would just briefly mention is that as part of my career, really spent a lot of time in the area of leadership development. And all of the institutions that I've been involved in have had programs oriented toward leadership development. I think it's a really important part of what someone's higher ed experience can be, and especially for those people who aspire to be leaders. And I was so excited about various attributes of the Schwarzman Scholar program that really set it up to be just the kind of perfect context for producing leaders and for developing one's leadership style. And that's about the intensity of the program. It's about its residential nature. It's about that we're pushing you outside of your comfort zone. It's about the extent to which you're surrounded by peers who are similarly ambitious, but also that are dedicated to one another's leadership development. All of that is like for someone like me who spent a lot of time trying to create leadership development programs, that's like your kind of picture perfect setting for leadership development. So I just thought the opportunity there was so fantastic. And the final thing I'll add to that is, of course, we are a leadership program, but we're not just any old leadership program. We're really about producing global leaders. And this was a huge part of Steve Schwarzman's vision that I think was so apt and so kind of ahead of time in his thinking, which is that really he had the realization that I think is just spot on, which is that wherever you want to lead, whatever you want to do, whatever sector industry you find yourself in, whatever your goals are, to really lead in the future, you are going to have to understand China. You just have to understand China. And for many of us, that's not been part of our educational background, and yet that will be a limitation. And so this opportunity to have that intensive leadership development experience in China with a very diverse international cohort of people, so that you really are becoming and set up to be a global leader. That's just really cool.
That's great.
Cordel, do you want to add in or share your insights as well?
Yeah, so honestly, I would co-sign a lot of what Lara said. Like, those were many of the same animating factors that I had. So when I first started practicing law 20 years ago, I immediately reached out to my alma mater and said I'd like to teach a class. And I immediately went back to a campus, and I've been on a campus ever since. It's been a really big part of my professional life. So I eventually went back to work there. So I enjoy, as Lara said, working with students and watching them achieve their potential, and do that at a very high level, which we're very fortunate to get a chance to do here at Schwarzman Scholars. To me, like when I when I first started thinking about making this change and then going to work at Schwarzman Scholars, and I had the opportunity to interact with the students, it just really blew my mind away. Like, I love working with students who see that the change that they want to make in the world. They see the change they want to make, and that excites them and it animates them. But students who also understand each of us has the power to make that change. And when I had the opportunity to go to the college, to go to Beijing, and to interact with the students, like, that was the thing that really stuck out for me. It's like they understood the change that they thought they personally could make in the world, and they knew that they could do it, and they knew that they as an individual can do it, and really any individual can do it when they put their mind to it. So it's just that like that energy that I felt from the students was just so very exciting to me. And the other thing is I'll just kind of echo some of the things that Lara said. It's the mission of the program. If we in the Schwarzman Scholars community do this right, we will help create a more peaceful, more prosperous, more connected globe. And to me, like, that is really, really, really very exciting. You have a community of high achieving people who want to do this one thing. It was a single-minded mission to do this one thing, that is to make this, a more peaceful, more prosperous, more connected globe. And I just really wanted to be a part of that community. It was really very exciting for me.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you both so much. And so both of you also talked about working very extensively in higher education institutions, and most of your professional careers have been pretty much here in higher education institutions. And so from this more bird's eye view, if you will, what would you say is like some outstanding, unusual aspects that Schwarzman Scholars has to offer compared to other, perhaps graduate school programs specifically? Cordel, would you like to start, and maybe also showcase and talk a little bit more about the residential aspect, as you had the opportunity to visit, Schwarzman College before lockdown?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit more about the vision for Schwarzman Scholars. As I kind of answer your question, the vision for Schwarzman Scholars is to build a global network of dynamic young leaders who throughout their careers can deepen understanding between China and the rest of the world across many different professional fields. The program expands the scholars' leadership capacity by exposing them to many different styles of leadership from around the world, and by deepening their intercultural and interpersonal skills. That's really very important. It's a huge part of the Schwarzman Scholars program. It's based in a fully funded intensive one-year master's program in global affairs at Tsinghua University. So Tsinghua University is part of the Ivy League of China. The Ivy League of China is called the C9. So with a flexible, broad curriculum at Tsinghua University in Schwarzman College that touches on business, politics, and international affairs, the academic program deepens the scholars' understanding and knowledge of the way China interacts with the rest of the world, and how China is growing and expanding in and of itself recently. The program also makes a serious investment in experiential learning, with high-level trips around the country, with senior mentors, with internships in major offices around Beijing. These experiences are meant to expand the scholars' interpersonal and cultural skills, as well as their interactions with leaders in China, so that when scholars leave, they have an understanding of the specific leadership model that China has, so that when they are interacting with that later in their careers, like, they understand why the counterparts on the other side of the table maybe are acting as they are, because they understand the leadership model that does exist in China. The strength of the alumni network, the people, that's the key to the long-term vision. And the program delivers high-level alumni programming at no cost on the themes of leadership, China, and global affairs. Alumni programming is designed to continue to expand the skills and networks needed for scholars to serve as a bridge between China and other global actors. So basically, the long-term vision is Schwarzman Scholars in positions of influence and people-to-people connection that is based in intercultural understanding. And I do want to talk about the residential community a little bit. Like the thing that really strikes you first is the building. Like when you get to Beijing and you get to Tsinghua and you are in front of Schwarzman College, right behind Lara. The building is so very striking. It's without a doubt one of the top-notch academic facilities on the planet, and it's just like, it's no doubt. Behind me, you see the forum as you walk into the college, and you see the library behind Alicia there. It is designed and it's conducive for education, academics at a high level, but also making sure that there are other opportunities where students are meeting together and learning from one another in non-classroom facilities and opportunities. And so that they're also doing that with faculty and with guest speakers. The building is designed to make sure that those opportunities are there and that everybody's taking part in them. And that is a part of the education in the same way that the classroom is a part of the education. I mean, I'm sorry. Well, I just want
keep going.
a couple more things. Yeah, a couple more things. I want to talk about like the fact that, once you get past like this gorgeous facility and you walk in the building, this thriving community just kind of opens up to you as you walk through the front door. There's students from all over the globe like living and learning together, and it's just, the energy is just really very palpable. Even when you just walk in the building, it's exciting to be amongst these people. I was able to have several meals with students from all over the globe, and to have really fascinating conversations with them about the things that are exciting to them and things that are motivating to them and the reasons that they want to do this. And they represent fields from physics and music to entrepreneurship and nonprofits and law and medicine. And it's just so wonderful to be able to have, you never know what kind of amazing conversation you're going to have over a fantastic meal at the college.
That's wonderful, Cordel, and a wonderful segue. I see some Q&A questions also coming in. For those of you who have interest in just learning more about the Schwarzman Scholars experience, definitely tune in our previously recorded featured spotlight series. There's also a really awesome immersive virtual tour of Schwarzman College on our website, so I encourage you to peruse there or go on social media. But Lara, is there anything else that you might want to highlight based on your observations and of Schwarzman College and Schwarzman Scholars, the program, that might be distinctive in a way?
Sure. I mean, I think it was implicit in what Cordel said, but I want to maybe draw it out a little bit more, which is that almost always graduate programs are about focusing you in on a particular discipline. And, so Cordel worked in a law school and I worked at a business school. And so in those programs, there's sort of an idea of a range of jobs, but still a kind of professional trajectory that the students are on, and they're all on that professional trajectory. The Schwarzman Scholars program is completely different from that. I mean, this is one of these ways in which I'm just saying it's very innovative, and there isn't a clear comparison set. There are students and scholars who are pursuing such a wide range of different paths in life. And the curriculum is also not sort of dependent on or based in a single discipline or a single set of professional assumptions. The idea is that you are going to become knowledgeable and expert in China, in global affairs, which is a highly interdisciplinary field, and that you're going to work on your leadership. And that's really unique because most graduate programs are oriented toward a particular, a much more narrow focus. Simultaneously, everybody wants to say that they're global, and this program is sort of global for real or in a different way. Our scholars come from a wide range of countries. We have sort of rules set up about, just what the distribution across the globe is going to be, so that we're not majority any single nationality. And so it's global by who the scholars are, Similarly with the faculty, you'll find that the faculty come from widely disparate places. We recruit them from all over the world, and they come in and teach in this program and sometimes go back, and others of them stay. But they're highly diverse. And then of course, we're in Beijing, this global city with its own, of course, culture and sensibilities, but also just connected to such a wide range of cultures and practices. So I think that's just, again, I think that's really, I don't know what else out there really has those characteristics, and not for everybody, but boy, if that's what you're looking for, this deep learning experience that is about propelling you somewhere else, but not to some specific profession, then I think that's a unique and special offering.
Thank you so much, Lara and Cordel. If you all aren't excited and fired up about Schwarzman Scholars already, my goodness. Switching gears a little bit, a more playful side, and also just indulging in my geekiness, if you will. Lara, your scholarship primarily focuses on group dynamics as well as the social context of emotion, which is so exciting, and that's, I think, another reason why the organization is so excited to have you as our new executive director, really at the helm of that. And so for me, I'm just curious if you have the time and opportunity outside of all these demands of just running Schwarzman Scholars day-to-day operationally, if you had time to go back and conduct some research at Schwarzman College, what would you be interested in examining? What type of study would you create for this unique group of what we see as hopefully the next generation of future young leaders of the world?
Sure, thank you. So I'm a social psychologist as my academic background. In social psychology, we study kind of interpersonal dynamics, and we use a laboratory method almost always. So we like to examine people's behavior in a setting where we can watch them closely and yes, have them answer questions, but also just see how they behave. And I think it's a fascinating field. But it has been criticized over time for not being culturally, sort of being aware, sufficiently aware of cultural differences. And so the easiest, clearest answer is that, that's the obvious thing to study at Schwarzman College, because as I was talking about before, you have such a vast array of cultural differences, and not just sort of Chinese versus American or even Eastern versus Western, again, people from all over the world. At the same time, to just complexify that a little bit, in my field, as people started to study cultural differences and cultural influences, the emphasis was really on differences. And so there were a lot of studies about just showing, oh, people are different. But I think part of what our scholars see is the way in which people have different perspectives, the way in which those are formed by their backgrounds and different experiences, but they also see their commonalities, and those are just as important. And then they also have the experience of how they're going to work and get things done together, balancing out and making use of both those differences and those commonalities. And I think really being able to capture that in a way that, actually I think our scholars do every single day at the program would be fascinating and would actually be great contribution to the field of social psychology. So our future scholars better watch out. I might come with my little, measurement devices to be capturing exactly what it is that they're doing and how they're responding to what happens around them. So it would be a fruitful place for such a study for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you for
Great.
indulging me.
Yeah.
And that, I was so curious. And Cordel, another fun and playful question that I'm going to set up for you too. If anti-aging machines existed and you found yourself as a current Schwarzman scholar, what class or opportunity excites you the most and why?
So this one's easy. So for me, I would say two things that would make me the most excited, and one is the deep dive experiences that the college has. Like there are formal deep dives where you go around the country and you get to like really immerse yourself into an aspect of life in China in the 21st century in a way that as somebody not from China you just wouldn't have the opportunity to do. And to me, like it's so very exciting, and you're doing it with your classmates and with experts from the college who are giving you kind of the history and the background and the basis for everything that you're seeing and that you're understanding. It's such a rich and wonderful opportunity. I would love to be able to experience that as a scholar. But I think also as wonderful are the informal deep dives that the scholars organize themselves when there are breaks, and scholars, they themselves, like a Chinese scholar may take several classmates back to their hometown, or they experience another part of Asia for instance, the Chinese New Year, where there's a very long break. Like they go and together, like they organize their own deep dive, and they immerse themselves and experience another part of the country or the continent. I think it's wonderful the way the students have taken something that's so very important formally to the college's existence and adapted it. 5, 6, 7 of them get together and they adapt it for what makes them excited and what they want to see. And they know that they don't necessarily need the guides from the college to take them, and they're not just hunkered down in Beijing during the month that they get off for the Chinese New Year. They're exploring and they're doing what they should be doing as part of the Schwarzman Scholars program. The other thing I would say, and I did get to experience this, and the thing that would make me so excited is it really is the dining room. The dining room at Schwarzman College is just so magical. Like, listen, the food is very, very, very good. So that's great in and of itself. But really, you sit down and you're talking to somebody that under any other circumstances you may not have ever met. They're from a different discipline, they're from a different culture, they're from a different continent. And here you are in Beijing in this wonderful, beautiful dining room over a meal, discussing things with somebody you might not have ever met. I mean, and like you're learning something from somebody who like knows it so deeply and they care about it so passionately. It's so very infectious, and it's so very exciting, and it's so very wonderful and integral to life at Schwarzman College. One of the pieces of magic of Schwarzman College is like in life, what I've realized is it's hard to hate somebody that you eat with on a regular basis. So the fact that the dining hall is such an important part of life at Schwarzman College, it really does serve as a unifying pillar, eating together and talking and sharing over a meal.
That's awesome. Yes, indeed. I've heard amazing stories time and time again from our alumni about just wonderful memories that they have formed around in the canteen at Schwarzman College, around Beijing. So much happy memories are around and related to food.
Wait, let me say one more thing. So the food is wonderful and the dining hall is great. But it's so great that students were spending so much time in the dining hall that the decision was made to actually close the dining hall a few days a week to get students to go out and to experience other food in Beijing and other food around campus, so that the students could get a bit of the local flavor, and they could talk to other students who aren't necessarily part of the Schwarzman Scholars community, but they are part of the Tsinghua community. And like I said, Tsinghua, the students there are amazing. It's part of the C9, China's Ivy League. So you really want our students to interact with them as well, because like they are bringing such rich, wonderful experiences and ideas to the table. So you really do want Schwarzman Scholars to also be Tsinghua University students.
Yes, that's wonderful. And thank you so much, Cordel. You kind of also helped set the stage too. There's a question that came in as well about how our Schwarzman Scholars interact with the Tsinghua community at large. And it's really, as Cordel just mentioned, our Schwarzman Scholars, they are full members of the Tsinghua community, and there's lots of options to interact with students beyond just the classroom. And so we actually had a featured spotlight series last month that says Beyond Schwarzman College, how our students interact with Tsinghua, Beijing, and the rest of China. So I do encourage you to tune in. Our Dean of Students, Melanie Kunderman, showcased the wonderful stories of 4 alumni, or actually they spoke themselves about how they were really found some compelling and unusual ways to interact and be part of the Tsinghua community. So definitely tune in that way. So time is just flying by, both of you, as we go through with this webinar. I just have one other set question before we turn to Q&A, and there have been some wonderful questions coming in. But one thing that I want to emphasize to those in attendance as well is that one of the main goals of Schwarzman Scholars is to create a robust network of future young leaders who will be able to utilize the things that they've learned and the people that they've connected with through the program to create impact. So Cordel, can you recount just one quick story that showcases how the Schwarzman Scholars community supports one another?
Yeah, let me talk about this from kind of a couple of angles that I think intersect. You know, so coronavirus has provided a number of opportunities for our alumni to support one another and to support the communities around them. And I was really struck by 2 alumni in South America, for instance, who partnered together because they both have a really deep understanding of entrepreneurship, and they understand its importance in helping to build economies from the ground up. So, so what they did was they joined together, and then they joined with the Brazilian Relief Fund to funnel needed aid to Latin American entrepreneurs to make sure entire economies in developing areas aren't left completely broken by the after effects of COVID-19. And they were supporting one another by doing something, by coming together and doing something that made them very excited, and their desire to work with people around the world and to use their love of entrepreneurship to help build economies. But they were also looking at the communities around them and figuring out, how can we together as Schwarzman Scholars help those around us, so that we're not just kind of perpetuating sort of an insular, future leader sort of club, and I just thought that was really very exciting, and it really, to me, said a lot about the Schwarzman Scholars community. The other thing I want to talk about, and I really feel this is important to talk about because this is very grassroots. The other thing I want to talk about is Schwarzwomen. You know, it's an organization of female members of our community, of the Schwarzman Scholars community, who've put together an organization to support one another through the challenges that women face across the globe as they seek to amplify women taking leadership roles in the 21st century and into the 22nd. They do mentoring, they do programming, and they do basic things like making sure members know about international opportunities that otherwise might not make it to a wider audience. But again, like, to me, like, that's something that that's not something that the college put together. It's not something that leadership said, you know, we need Schwarzwomen and you need to support each other, go do it. It was something that the members of this community thought, you know, this is something that we as future leaders, we as members of this community need to support one another to make sure that the women, the voices of female members of our community be amplified. And they came together and they found a way to very, very, very successfully do that.
Super, that's wonderful. Now, y'all, we have so many really great substantive questions that we're going to try to address, and everyone keep them coming in. If we don't have a chance to address them live today, no worries. We encourage you to email us at admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org, and we'll try our best to answer them. And so for one question that is, I'd love for Lara, if you don't mind tackling on first, is just given, and I'm going to generalize it too, just the political uncertainty of the world today, not only in China or the United States. How does Schwarzman Scholars foster a culture of deep discussion and sometimes even defense in this Schwarzman College community?
Yeah, this is a great, I mean, right there, a bunch of questions wrapped up in this question, and a bunch of important issues. And so I'll say what I can think to say off the cuff, and I bet Cordel will have more to add. So I would start with, these are difficult times between the US and China, and let's be clear about that. And I think for many of us at the program, that makes us feel that the program and our work and participation in the program is even more critical today than it was at a time when those relations were easier. People don't, and countries don't have conflict and have difficult times unless the stakes are high, and the stakes are high, right? But this is why I think it's why Steve was so right in saying we need to understand each other. That's our only hope. So I would just start by sort of acknowledging the premise of the question, and then also saying, you know, that to me is another reason why the program needs to exist, and why great people need to attend it, and then they need to use the lessons of it and the experiences of it to work on the relations among these various countries. I think in part of this question, I sort of tried to scan through things, but as you're saying, there are now a lot in there, was also about then how does that play out in terms of the discussions in the classroom? And I also think there are sort of two different versions of this question that are related, and one is about sort of, are there, you know, topics that are off limits? And then also just how is disagreement and dissent dealt with, which is, you know, I think a challenge in education everywhere, and then has a kind of particular version of a challenge in China. So first of all, we worked really hard in the program to create a kind of safe zone in Schwarzman College where conversations can happen. And that's really important to the program. We have formal agreements with the university to that effect. We do a lot of orientation with faculty and with students about managing that. And I would say in the that it is managing it, because we support, believe in, promote, you know, speech and discussion and debate. And at the same time, in our efforts to have our scholars really learn about China, part of it is navigating the reality of the norms in China. And so we also have a lot of discussion about that. So we don't try to create an environment that says like, oh, we're not actually in China. No, we're actually in China. And so what does that mean about how these topics get discussed, where you can discuss them, with whom? And we produce the opportunity for those discussions in the college while also being really mindful of the setting around us. So it's it is delicate, careful, and thoughtful, and something that we're also constantly working on. And it takes constant work, and it takes constant work of the faculty and staff, but also the scholars themselves. And that's what we ask of the scholars, is to engage with us in this way, to both respect the place we're trying to understand, and to engage in hard conversation and hard discussions. And you know, I've been really impressed by the way in which we integrate all of that together.
Thank you so much, Lara. Cordel, anything to add, or another question? Oh, you're muted, my dear.
Sorry about that. Anything I said would not be as good as what Lara just said, so I am going to let that stand.
That's great. No problem. Well, we have lots of other questions to still address. So Cordel, instead of that one and adding on to that, you know, what is your opinion as the Director of Global Admissions? What is a common quality that unites Schwarzman scholars? That's one that we get asked a lot. And yeah, what are some characteristics that we seek?
I mean, I guess the easy answer there is to kind of lean on the pillars of the selection process here. What are we looking for? We're looking for demonstrated leadership, we're looking for character, and we're looking for intellect. Those are the things that we want all Schwarzman scholars to have in common. Otherwise, what I would say on that is like, otherwise what we're looking for a diverse class of people who bring different things to the table. So there's no rubric where we're checking off, okay, this person has this person has this person has that, they believe this, they believe that. Like that's not what we're doing. We're looking for people who can come to the college and have differences and can have a robust conversation that is civil, but have a robust conversation at the college. So the things that are in common: demonstrated leadership, character, and intellect. Otherwise, bring yourself to the college and take part in this civil but wonderful conversation, a dialogue.
That's wonderful. And another thing that I've heard a lot for our alumni who've been participating in our virtual outreach sessions is when they describe their, their cohort base and the people that they've met through their program. It's just a sense of insatiable curiosity, the humbleness of recognizing they don't know everything, but they are so excited to just learn more and take advantage of all of those opportunities out there. So that sets the baseline for this next question that's going to dive a little bit deeper, everyone. And so a question came in, which is just lovely. And so this person was asking Cordel and Lara to think about what is the definition of a good global leader? And is there a difference between what makes a good global leader in our world today versus what makes a good global leader in the future? I know. So take a little bit of time. And then perhaps, Lara, if you want to go first and take a first stab.
Lara's an expert. Like, I can't follow an expert.
Or we'll have Lara take a stab at that. Yeah.
I know, this is like a final exam question. So let me buy myself a little bit of time by just adding on a little bit to the last question and connecting it to a question that I had seen before on the Q&A, which is that this program we've talked about it as intimate and intense. And part of that really comes from its size. And I think given the size and given that most of the students, 80% of them, are not Chinese nationals, there's a kind of, this intimacy and community feeling of the program. And I think the ability to sort of participate in and build community is another really important attribute that sometimes we don't articulate because it's sort of so common in our alums, but therefore I think, really related to the question. And I bring it up in part because I saw this question earlier about, why do, how do we sort of square the individualistic nature of the program with the kind of more collective norms of China, which, again, as a social psychologist, I thought was a great question too. But I think it's important to say that, well, I would say just don't think our program actually is very individualistic. And back to what I had been saying before, I think it has this collective quality in part because of the intimacy, but also back to, you happen to have on this screen 3 Americans, but when you are there in the college, it's not that all the people, that all the faculty come from, countries that are higher in individualism rather than collectivism. That really isn't the case. There are many, many professors who are Tsinghua professors as their full-time jobs, and there are many professors, again, from places all over the world. So it really is a mix. It's this fascinating kind of blend of values and cultures. And so anyway, I just thought I would touch on that question. Okay, now on to the final exam.
Yeah.
So I think, leadership, part of why it's so hard to teach and so hard to develop is because it is a sort of nebulous term, and which is funny because people use the term quickly and easily and all seem to think we all know that we're using it the same way and meaning the same thing. And I think we're not even meaning the same thing, right? So first of all, I just say there are many ways to be a leader. And that there are, and that's sort of to the question asker's point of view, even within one's own life, even within an individual, I think we go through many different stages and phases of our leadership that aren't about linearly just becoming better. It's really about sort of shifting and changing as the context needs it. And I think one of the greatest traits and qualities that a leader can develop in herself is that ability to sort of flex and change and be the leader that's required for what you're trying to achieve. And you know, that in and of itself is not a very easy thing to achieve, but I think it's core to any kind of leadership, and really core to global leadership, right? Because what you're having to do in this whole notion of flexing is assessing the situation and your context, and that sort of thinking again about the culture and nationality and norms and values of that setting. You're thinking about the particular task that you're trying to work on, or the goal and mission that you're trying to achieve. And then you're thinking about the people who are there with you and are part of this. And all of that needs to be integrated and weighed off of one another. And then, as the question asker brings up, that now a whole other factor in that is technology, and how you make the best use of technology in that whole process as well. But to me, you know, again, I think is probably dangerous and doesn't serve any of us well to sort of say the essential quality of leadership is. But I think for the answer in this question to be kind of to have one crystallized thing to say, I would put an emphasis on the ability to be flexible, and I think to learn all this pieces and skills that are about flexibility. And again, that's this sort of attentiveness to everything around you, but also then an attentiveness to yourself and how you are fitting in, interacting with, and what's needed out of you for all of those other things that you're attending to, and understanding what in you will have the effect that you desire for that setting. And I think that's, you know, that's true for who you are now, and that's true for who you will be and what the world will be in the future.
That's wonderful. And
Yeah.
Cordel, recognizing what Lara said as well, though, people have different definitions of leadership. Would you like to share any other different ways of viewing and seeing or perceiving leadership to the audience?
I'm not joking. Like, I can't improve what you just said. That was, I mean, yeah, that was great. Like, I'm taking notes here because I need to say these things.
Understood, of course. Another question that I think would really benefit those who are in attendance today, as again, academics and those who have been in higher ed institutions in the past, and it's very clear from just spending time with both of you how you really just you really get fired up just interacting and making sure and championing young people's lives and making sure that they are setting themselves up for success for the future through consumption of education. And so there's this one question that came in that is asking how should prospective students academically and mentally prepare when applying, they said for Schwarzman Scholars, but I'd say just like graduate school in general, right? Like what is that type of mindset? How should you approach, you know, considering higher education in the Cordel, do you want to start?
Well, I definitely want to start by kind of talking about the application process, because when a lot of people go towards the application process, a lot of people, you know, they decided that this is the grad school, or this is the type of grad school I definitely want to go to, and then they look and see who's done that, and then they're like, what do these people have in common? And then they're trying to like make themselves sound like these people who've been successful with getting into this program in the past, and you know, they write this personal statement that they think they need to write to sound like this is what a Schwarzman Scholar sounds like, or this is what a Stanford Business School student sounds like, or this is what a UVA law student sounds like. And so somebody in admissions gets this application, you get somebody's personal statement, you're reading the resume, and it just feels plastic and inauthentic. The most important thing somebody can do when they're thinking about grad school is figure out, like, who am I? What do I want to get from this? What's important to me? And present your first and make your decision about what type of grad school and what grad school you want to go to based on that. And then as you're putting the application together, that's what you're doing. You're presenting who you are and what makes you tick and what's important to you and what you want to do with your career to that admissions committee. And the right admissions committee will be excited about that. And you'll wind up where you're meant to be. So if from an admission standpoint, anybody walking away from this, if you just walk away with one word, I want that word to be authenticity. As you're going into the application process, authenticity is the most important thing. And the other thing I like to say is, when you're applying for something like Stanford Business School or UVA Law or Schwarzman Scholars or Rhodes Scholarship or any of these, Knight Tennessee, any of these big fellowships, win or lose, in some ways that's secondary, because like going through the process is just as fulfilling as getting it, because you get to have a lot of self-reflection. You get to talk to mentors. You get to decide what is exciting to me and how do I want to present, how can I articulate what is exciting to me, and having the opportunity to do that, win or lose. When you've come out on the other side of that, you're a better person. And when you're when you're applying for whatever next, you are able to articulate that in a way that will help you moving forward, and that will boost you moving forward. So win or lose, enjoy the process and know that the process in and of itself is important and is providing value for you today and for your future.
That's wonderful, Cordel. And Lara, do you have any other, words of wisdom to share for those in attendance?
So I would give, I think, a version of what Cordel said, extended beyond the admissions process, really to graduate education, which is that I think the mistake that people can make is sort of thinking about graduate education as an achievement, as something, a notch in your belt, if you will. And if that's what you're thinking about it, and you want to make sure that you have that other line on your resume, yep, you've gotten that. But the people who really get the most out of graduate education are the people who emphasize the experience over the achievement. And I think doing that requires, it's a little bit, I mentioned it very briefly at the beginning, but a willingness to spend a good amount of your time during your graduate education outside your comfort zone. So in a class I used to teach, we used to challenge people, like, at least 10% of the time, be out of your comfort zone. And, again, one of the things I love about this program is you're pretty much, if you show up, you'll be in that pushing outside of your comfort zone for at least 10% of the time. There just will be enough new and different that you'll be that way. And then instead of having that be a sort of bad thing or a thing you're trying to shut down, to be really living in that and trying to really understand that and derive learning from that experience of newness and uncertainty. And so that would be my advice, is to focus on experience rather than achievement, and have a chunk of that experience be outside your comfort zone.
Correct. Yeah.
That's wonderful. You all, there is just time is just flying by. We have 5 more minutes. And so wrapping up today, Lara, I have one last question for you. And what do you envision Schwarzman Scholars to be in the world stage for the long term?
Yeah, I really go back to what Cordel was saying, that this program, sometimes we think about it, it's your year to learn stuff about China. Yeah, this program is about that, but what it's really about the future and creating a different set of international relations where the major decision makers, the major leaders are able to have an understanding of one another, an understanding of one's cultures and values, and an understanding of how to work with one another, so that we create a different kind of world that is more peaceful, that is more prosperous, where people are healthier, and are able to thrive. That's what I envision for the program, and that's what I envision for the individuals who come out of our program.
Right.
That's great. And I feel like Cordel also touched upon the other question that I was going to ask him earlier about, what best advice should we share out to those in attendance if they're considering to apply. And so we encourage you with that in mind. Yeah, since Cordel, you already mentioned it, we have so many wonderful resources, the admissions team, that's already produced on our website and on our YouTube channels. We encourage you to continue to engage with us. We have so many events there too. And so, this has just been such a wonderful time. Things are wrapping up here today. But again, we hope that we've piqued your interest by attending this session today. It was just so lovely to talk to Cordel and Lara. I hope that you have more insight and a better understanding of Schwarzman Scholars and what we're all about through our conversation here today. Do not hesitate to reach out to us on the U.S. Global Admissions team by emailing admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org or by going on to our website. With that, everyone, we'll give you maybe 2 minutes of your time back. We wish you, best of luck if you're applying this year. We wish you also a happy and healthy rest of the year. Thank you all again for attending today, and take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.